November 7th, 2019. Joe here at Simple Life Show. Appreciate everybody liking, subscribing, sharing, doing all that good social media stuff, because that does help to get the libertarian, conservative, or rational thinking human mind message out there to the population that sorely desperately needs it right now in this perilous times going at the 2020 election. Now, it's not just the election, the 2020 election. It goes much further, much deeper than that. We know that. But here going into the next election, it's just, it really does feel like there's a lot more on the line than there was in 2016. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I really believe that there's a lot more on the line, because we have a population, at least half the population, that is just as upset and just as desperate as a lot of the ex-Democrats were back in 2016 as I was. Now, I wasn't actually one of the people that were out there rioting and stuff like that. You didn't really see too many riots and protests against Obama. I'm not saying they weren't there, but they weren't there in such a fashion as it is with Trump. I mean, it just seems like it's a weekly, if not daily occurrence where there's going to be some sort of protest, riot, rally, people throwing trash cans, setting stuff on fire, burning flags, kneeling for anthems, just kind of going crazy. And, just like in The Joker, the new movie, The Joker, out there. If you haven't seen that, definitely watch that. But it is getting a lot crazier out there, and I think that the movie itself, the Joker movie, is a kind of message for us going into 2020. I think that there's a significant part of the population that really wants to jerk the wheel hard to the left, and not so much to the right as it was with Trump. I believe that was more along, not so much a jerk to the right. I think it was just an anti-establishment type of punk movement that, and I want to say punk movement, I'm saying about the punk rock movement. It's something that's anti-establishment. It's against big government. It's against big control. That makes up the majority of the Trump supporters. If whether you like to believe it or not, Trump supporters are way more punk than you. They do not like big government. They don't want the government messing around in their stuff. They don't want the big government. They don't want government involved in their lives at all. The only thing that the government is tasked to do, and this is something that is really important for everyone to understand and keep in mind, is that it's for public safety. It's for protecting the nation. It's not only protecting it foreign and domestic, but mainly domestically. I believe that, a lot of the programs out there for protecting people's health, people's safety, people's security is the most important thing. And that is what the government is tasked to do, and that alone. It is also there to back up the states and to provide them help. Basically, if, whenever they need help on something, that's what the federal government is there to do, is to back up the individual rights and the individual decisions that states make as well. And we have this, at least half the population, if not more, that sincerely believes that the U.S. government, the federal government, is there to run everything. That's why we have all of these departments that are unnecessary. I believe when Ron Paul first started running, and even that back to Ross Perot, where he was talking about eliminating a lot of these unnecessary bureaucratic type of money pits that a lot of our tax dollars go into, that nothing really ever gets done. Nothing is accomplished. It's just kind of a spinning wheel of money. And it just keeps going around and around, and a lot of waste is happening. And it's basically another leak inside of our system that needs to be plugged. And Bernie Sanders, I'm sorry, is not the answer to that question. Bernie Sanders is the antithesis of that problem. He will only exacerbate that problem by continuing to spend money and continuing to overtax not only the wealthy, but also the middle class. If you really believe that the upper class and the wealthy will be able to shoulder the entire burden of a lot of these issues that we have in this nation, this is not going to be the solution for us, because what's going to end up happening, the rich and wealthy and those that really want to make a living making different stuffs for the world, and doing their ingenuity and their entrepreneurship and stuff like that, they're simply going to go to another country and set up shop there. It's happened in the past. A lot of the companies have come back. because of the less bureaucratic regulation and the red tape that has to go along with it. I think that as long as the company is abiding by safety regulations, which means that they are producing a product that is safe for the public to either consume or use or simply be around, then I believe the government has done its job. I think that that is one of the main purposes, if not the only purpose of the government, is to ensure the safety and protection of its citizens, and that is it. Everything else is ancillary. It comes down to a state issue, not a federal issue, a state issue, which is why Trump is good for a lot of reasons, because he wants to keep it in the state's hands on how they handle stuff. They want to, Trump wants all the governors of their states to put on their big boy pants and run their states the way they should, and not rely on the federal government for everything. I mean, it's something that that parents have to do with their children sometimes when they simply won't leave the house. They have to kick them out of the nest, as it were. They have to make sure they are adults. They have to sometimes force them to be adults. And I think a lot of that's not even happening with the children, the millennials out there, Generation Zs. A lot of their parents, they're just refusing to actually grow up and to learn how to use their minds for something productive and to form a rational thought. Now, if you're a Democrat, that's fine. I'm not saying that you're irrational. I used to be a Democrat. I used to be a rational Democrat. But when I saw that the party was going down an irrational and chaotic path, that's why I decided to go ahead and leave the party and vote for Trump. I could not, in all rationality, vote for someone that completely embodied everything I was trying to run away from, which was Hillary Clinton. She is probably the most corrupt politician to ever live. And that's why she simply won't shut up. That's why she won't go away. That's why she's threatening to run again. I don't think it's going to happen, but you never know. You absolutely don't know. So really what I'm talking about is Bernie Sanders' immigration plan, of course, is just one of the things that Bernie is talking about over the length of his campaign. There's a lot of people that are in love with Bernie Sanders. I believe that Bernie, his ideology, I don't believe in any of his ideologies. But the fact is that this man just had a heart attack, and he's probably not in good shape and stuff like that. He's probably not in the best of health. I don't even know if he could last 4 years. I'm not wishing death upon him. I wish him all the health in the world. I just don't think that he should be running just for his own safety. Going through months and months and months of a hard campaign with Donald Trump is not going to fare well for Bernie Sanders. I don't think it's going to fare well for anyone. I definitely know it's not going to fare well for Joe Biden, because Joe Biden will not be able to even keep himself awake. At least that's something that I know that Bernie Sanders can do, is keep himself awake. So, I mean, if there was one matchup that would be so diametric, it would be Bernie Sanders and it would be Trump. I just don't believe that's what's going to happen, because Bernie Sanders is not good for the Democratic Party, and the money that's flowing into the Democratic Party. They have the George Soroses of the world, the Rockefellers, and all those donors of the Democratic Party, all the elites that are donating and kind of shifting the focus of the Democratic Party to something more as left leaning. I don't think that they have really the right. Bernie has their right motivations in mind. And they don't like that. And I think for that reason alone, Bernie will not get the nomination. He will get snuffed out once again by another old woman. Not as I don't think Elizabeth Warren is quite as old as Hillary Clinton, but they might be similar. They might be close. I really don't care. But he'll be boned once again by another female in the Democratic primaries. So that's my prediction. So I had a chance to actually look at this immigration plan, and it's I'm not going to go through literally everything that Bernie Sanders is talking about, but I will highlight some of the things that I thought was interesting. Of course, he is, just in the first few paragraphs on immigration. Of course, we have to talk about Donald Trump, where he says the Trump administration treatment of so we now have a president who's racist, xenophobe, and a demagogue, as he has tried, as all demagogues do, to divide us by demonizing immigrants and blaming them for society's problems. Of course, this is something that Bernie Sanders is really famous for, is starting this whole racist and racist and xenophobe, and just calling people names and dismissing their speech and stuff like that. And of course, all of the people who follow Bernie and follow the Democratic Party in general have taken up this type of moniker and this type of strategy of just naming names and saying that you're just a racist, you're a xenophobe, you're a misogynist, or whatever you want to call us. Those are probably the top three. You're literally Hitler and stuff like that. You're a Nazi. And, as long as you can call people that, then you don't have to listen to them, because you shouldn't have to listen to a Nazi when they're talking about Nazi stuff. So if you basically, if you define everything as being, Hitler-esque or Nazi or something like that, or racist, then you have absolved yourself of actually taking on any responsibility for giving that person any type of platform, so you can at least discern what they're trying to say and attack that if it's incorrect, if it's false. So we can't really do that anymore. So Bernie Sanders says on day one he's going to start doing a lot of executive privileges, which was one of the things that he was talking really badly about when it comes to Trump and his executive orders. Of course, Trump has not done a lot of executive orders. Obama has done far more. But of course, Obama was in office for 4 years. I think that those actions from Trump for the executive privileges have been decent, just from a policy standpoint of view. They have accomplished a lot of stuff. So Bernie Sanders says day one, he's going to basically overturn everything that Trump did. Of course, that's not going to happen day one. It's probably going to take a couple months in order to do that. So it says here for a lot of these things what Bernie's going to do. Put a moratorium on deportations, basically stop all deportations. Stop the construction of the wall. He said it was ineffective, but it hasn't been built yet. It hasn't been completed yet. So, yeah, it wouldn't be very effective right now since it's not done there, Bernie Sanders. Yeah, we haven't really done a lot with the wall because a lot of it's been held up legally and financially and stuff like that. So it's not like there's not still construction going on. So what's really going to happen if Bernie Sanders is president? So, over the next year, I'm sure a lot of this wall is going to be built, maybe in the entire thing. Who knows? I know that Trump wants to get it done before the next election, but I don't think it's going to happen. But what if it was already done? What would Bernie Sanders do day one? Go out there with a sledgehammer? Be like Ronald Reagan tearing down the Berlin Wall? I mean, here's the thing. We're not separating our own country into East and West. We're separating one country from another. Sometimes there's physical borders, sometimes there's metaphorical borders, I don't know. But I know that you'd really need, in order to actually stop the inflow of a lot of the immigrants that are just flooding across the border, I mean, we might as well call ourselves America or Mexico or Mexico or whatever you want to call it. And we're not the United States of America that's in between Mexico and Canada. We're just part of Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. It's just we're all one country. We're all the EU now. We're the European Union. We're the North American Union. Well, of course, that's what they want. They want the North American Union, and Bernie Sanders is playing right into their hands. If he realizes they're not, I believe he does. So he really, this whole thing is basically about Bernie Sanders wanting everything to the people to be able to flood in. Yeah, he wants to control drugs and firearms and stuff like that. But having the people come across, that's not a big deal. Just have as many people come across. Where do you draw the line at that point? Would you just say that just take on the entire population of Mexico? Because that's kind of what he's saying. He's just saying that, hey, everybody from Honduras, everyone from Central and South America, and from Mexico, go ahead and just migrate up on here to the United States, and you'll be fine. We'll just go ahead and let you in. We'll set a court date, but you don't have to show up because we know you won't. And that's Bernie Sanders' immigration plan. And he also wants to get rid of ICE. He doesn't want to have any Border Patrol agents whatsoever. So what are we going to do? Put robots there? We're going to have people scan in barcodes? Well, what is Bernie's real plan here? It makes no sense. He says he wants to end Trump's zero-tolerance policy on Operation Streamline, which is returning to the long-term standard of handling border crossing through civil proceedings. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. The people aren't going to show up to any kind of civil proceeding. They're not doing that. They're probably not even going to be able to see a judge because it's going to be overrun, and we're not going to be able to have the manpower there to have civil proceedings. We'll have to have hundreds of thousands of judges. This is not going to happen. It's all going to break down, and people are just going to stream across the border, which at the end of the day, that is what the Democrats want. Because as long as there is nothing but their voting base streaming across the border, then everything is fine. Just like the old saying goes, if all the Republicans, if all Mexicans were Republicans, there would be the biggest wall between the United States and Mexico, and that is a fact. The Democrats do not care about the welfare of these people. Wake up. They just don't. You might, as a liberal, you might, as a Democrat, really truly care about the welfare of people. I'm not saying you don't. What I am telling you is that those who are actually running the Democratic Party right now, or those who are actually basically pulling their strings from the background, do not care about the people. They just simply don't. And I'm not exactly sure what kind of education you've had, or anybody had. I believe that college is kind of a waste of time because you're not really being taught much in college. I think people need to read a lot of books. I think people really need to read a lot of books and stop regurgitating stuff that they just memorized and now it's gone. And that's what really college is. It's a regurgitation of short-term memory, and that's it. You don't really get anything out of it. You're not really reading anything and practicing stuff and really putting anything into action as far as thinking about it and doing stuff. You just really don't do a lot of that with college. I think it's a waste of time. But I don't really think a lot of people are really learning as much as they should about the way a capitalist society should be operated. Now, there is a lot of things wrong with our current form of capitalism. Some could call it crony capitalism. I think there's too much lobbying going on. I think there's a lot of corruption that's within a lot of these huge, large conglomerates, and some could say even monopolies. I think a lot of that needs to be looked at, yes. But I think to scrap capitalism in favor of some sort of socialist make-believe utopia is disingenuous at best. I think it's all it's really going to do is cause more delusion from the population, believing that they can just simply rely on the federal government to get them through their entire lives. And I think that is really, really bad for the majority of people to believe that. I think that we really need to be encouraging others to be more to be more of an entrepreneurial spirit, to be more of an entrepreneur, to do different things, to learn how to live with less, to learn how to farm themselves, to learn how to live off the land, if that's the way you want to go as well. I think that we really need to concentrate on those types of things. But Bernie Sanders is really talking about just tearing down everything that Trump built up, to tearing down everything that kind of makes America what it is. Because if this country, the United States, doesn't have borders, then we're no longer actually a country. Therefore, we don't really need a constitution at that point. And maybe that's part of the plan as well. But if you're a Bernie bro out there, if you're thinking about Bernie Sanders, and I completely understand with where you're coming from. I used to be in your shoes. I used to be a Democrat. I would challenge you to really think about what Bernie is proposing for this country. And really what he is proposing is not a socialist utopia. He is proposing that the government takes control of everything. The federal government should be tasked to from cradle to grave type of care for the citizens. We are not living in a retirement village, people. We are living in a free nation. And this free nation, there is no guarantee that people are going to get out of it alive. We have the freedom to make our own choices. And sometimes those choices have negative consequences. Sometimes people aren't born in the best of circumstances, and I do feel for those people. And I think there should be at least some sort of help for those types of people as well. I am not a complete 100%, just 100% freedom, and whoever gets run over, they just get run over. There are some people out there, they're called libertarians, and I don't think they're bad people, but I wouldn't consider myself a 100% libertarian just as much as I would consider myself 100% a Republican either. I wouldn't consider myself at all a Democrat, even though I do still carry some of those types of ideologies with me, the right types of ideologies, those that are not perverted. I believe that people do deserve a hand up and help when they need it, when they deserve it. But we should also be 100%, at least on the other side of the coin, being really helpful to help people fish for their own fish, and provide them opportunities and help them get the opportunities that they need. But so making sure that they can get that push on the bike so they can start pedaling on their own. We shouldn't be trying to propose a type of society where people are simply going to just lay back and let the government do it for them. I mean, who wouldn't want to live in that society? I'm just saying, really. Who wouldn't want the government just to do everything for you? But the problem with that, if you really think about it, the problem with that is because those rays of sunshine of this socialist utopia turns into rain clouds of tyranny. And once you give the government all that power, they're going to tell you what to do. They're going to take care of you, but they are going to tell you what you can say, what you can't say, what you can do, what you can't do, where you can go, where you can't go. It's going to be simply like living in China. And China doesn't do that for the citizen. They are they're communist society. They don't. It's not cradle to the grave type thing. But some can make the argument that it is, but I don't believe it really is. I think it's just a total dictatorship and stuff like that. And the people there, they're probably used to it, but I'm pretty sure they're all miserable. I mean, the suicide rate in a lot of these Asian countries is ridiculous. And that's why people are killing themselves. It's because they don't live under pure freedom. At least as close as you can get. You need to be thanking yourself every single day that you live in this country, that where you have these freedoms, you can do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting someone else. You should be thanking God. You should be kissing the ground that you walk on. You should be kissing the ground of this country because of what it's given to you. And you need to stop being such spoiled brats and pretending like there's some sort of delusional utopia where everyone's taken care of and we sit around eating grapes all day, because that is not reality. Bernie Sanders is, bless his heart, but he's selling you a bottle of snake oil. At least Trump is being honest with you. You can say he's a liar. You can say he's a racist and a misogynist. You can say all that kind of stuff. But look around. Things aren't really that bad. They really aren't. They're really not that bad. There's a lot of great numbers out there. Yeah, some of the small businesses are suffering. Some of the small businesses have always suffered. There has never been a time in our economy where everything's been so wonderful. All the numbers have been up and everything is just peaches. And the mass media wants you to believe that's the way it should be, and it's not. It's really not that way. The same thing with climate change. It's not always going to be sunshiny at 65 degrees out there with no wind or a light breeze. That's not how climate works. It shifts, it moves, it evolves. It does this over time. It doesn't mean the world's coming to an end, and it's definitely not going to be our fault because we haven't really done that much terrible, so much bad to the climate that it's going to end up killing us. I think that is, I know that's a fairy tale that's being propagated, but we're not talking about climate change. We're talking about Bernie Sanders. But when we talk about Bernie Sanders, we kind of have to inject that as well, because he does talk about that a lot. So it's a year now until the next election. If you're a Bernie bro out there, if you're a Warren girl or guy or whatever, what do you want to call it? If you're just a Democrat that's vote blue no matter what type person, I really challenge you to start reading some of the things that these candidates are proposing. They don't really have any solid concrete answers to things. They don't have really any solid concrete plans. Look at what happens with Warren over the last few days. She's actually revealed her tax plan, and now everyone's going crazy because she finally told the truth. Why do you think that Elizabeth Warren didn't want to tell the truth in any of the debates? Because she would be slaughtered. She would have been skewered by everyone, and it would have been the end of her. And I believe that I believe she's probably going to come through this just fine. Honestly, I think that Warren, it's her nomination to lose at this point. I don't believe that Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders has a chance. I think that Joe Biden is just unelectable, number one, and Bernie Sanders is too much of a raving communist. But anyway, until the next time, this is Joe's Simple Life Show. Stay safe out there. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.